Hello, everyone.
Hey, and welcome back to part two of what's going on, how to stabilize during unpredictable times. Now, if you haven't seen part one, you need to go and watch it. But if you were at part one, you already know us. I'm LaDonna of Ebony Notes, an educator and wellness coach, and I am here with Crystal of Inclusive Guide, DL activist, and a certified DEI consultant.
I'm like emotionally certified. I'm not like paper certified, but
Okay. I
I'm
mean,
like bona
can I
fide.
stamp something and say, yes, certified? I mean, I'm here for it.
Well, as y'all might remember, if you saw part one, the purpose of this webinar is to introduce themes of resilience and community support. We're going to be talking about what all of this work means in the current political climate when we're experiencing and there's being created unprecedented levels of uncertainty and anxiety. We're going to help identify and address personal anxieties, help navigate uncertainty within the organizations and communities you are in, and find meaning and purpose. And we're hoping that both of these sections help contribute to tangible takeaways that you can bring back into your life and help continue the work that you do.
So if you slept a little since you tuned in for part one, some of the key points and takeaways from part one is that we are all feeling something, right? Like it's crazy out here, all the things we're hearing, all the shock for like all the, I can't think of the word that I'm thinking of, policies that are coming out. And it's kind of hard to navigate alone. We talked about stress management strategies, how you can practice mindfulness, practice journaling, different breathing exercises, and how to focus on like the facts when it comes to the news or fact focused news and how to cut out on that doom strolling. Another thing that one of our key points is that you need to rely on your values and lean into that in your personal and professional life. And we have to focus on what we can do and what we can control because we're gonna all go crazy trying to figure out how to solve these big issues that we can't even control or do anything about. So we want to focus on what we can do and what we can control and not what we can't do and what we can't control. And we talked about the importance of community, and that's actually where we kind of stop. So we're going to dive right on in looking at the importance when it comes to a community.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. I'm just like, yes.
so the big thing is that the connections and peer support are important for your mental and emotional health, right? When you have a community and people around you, it also reduces that stress and anxiety because you have someone to like share with, you have people to lean on. It keeps you from feeling isolated. Does that sound familiar, Crystal?
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed is whenever I have kind of those like more negative feelings, I don't like saying negative and positive because all feelings are valid. But like
Right.
when I have those feelings of like anger, anxiety, like loneliness and stuff, those feelings tend to make me want to like isolate and go into myself. And so I try to counter them. And so when I notice those, like, let's just call them negative for now, those negative feelings, the more unhelpful ones,
Yeah.
they like signal that they're helpful in that they signal something's wrong and they make me want to do like go into isolation. And so I try to counter them by doing the opposite. And I'll make a phone call, I'll send a text, I'll give someone a compliment, I'll go to the grocery store, even though that's what my brain does not want me to do.
So thank you for that. And then another thing, like having a community to lean on, another way it helps is it increase your resilience. When you have that peer support network of like encouragement and support, it helps you to bounce back from like any challenges or setbacks because we all know that Some of us are afraid of the future of our jobs. We don't know if organizations that we support or are a part of or kind of depend on are even going to exist. We've seen a ton of things kind of just taken away in front of our eyes. So when you have that community to build, to lean on, you have that increased resilience. Another way having that community support can help you is improve emotional regulation. Like, does that mean anything? Like,
Yeah.
improved emotional regulation. So it's basically, sorry, I might have to edit this. Basically, connecting with others allow you to express your emotions in a healthy and supportive environment. It allows you to kind of show up as yourself with all of your emotions and not feel like you have to hold back. Um, do you have anything to add to that, Crystal?
I do. I always have something to add to everything. And I'm so proud of you for being here today, by the way. I love doing these with you.
Thank
So I've noticed like if I feel like I'm the only one experiencing something, it makes me it like makes me like super upset. It feels kind of like the world is out to get Crystal Eggley. But like that's not true. So when I know that like other folks who are trying to start nonprofits, for example, in the same space that I am, the DEI space. And I'm like, if I thought that was just me that might come up against these like new barriers, makes me really, really, really angry, like out of control angry. But knowing that it's happening to other people, honestly gives me like this sense of like a shared anger. It's like kind of dispersed. So instead of like peaking like this in the middle, it kind of like helps flatten it. And then I can, instead of just feeling really bad for myself, I'm like invigorated to help the other people who have that shared experience.
Oh, that's amazing. But I have a couple of more that you may be able to relate to. So, having a community also enhance a sense of belonging. Um, it it fosters a sense of community when you have I don't know, when you have others that can relate to you, family or friends, that you can kind of lean on. It helps you to not feel like you're isolated. And this can be, it can significantly impact your mental health when you feel like you're isolated, when you feel that you are alone, when you feel like no one can relate to you, or there's no one that you can talk to. Another thing that helps, another way having a community can help you with your mental health and with your wellness is an increased self-esteem and confidence. Um, you are able to share your strengths or have people to help you toot your horn, right? Have people to pat you on the back. And it helps with like your self-esteem and confidence. You're able to like share your accomplishments with others, and not only do you recognize your own value, but they also recognize your value and can help you with that.
Girl, I did this for you over the last couple of days. I helped be your accountability buddy for an email that you were writing. And then when you sent it, you let me know. And then I was like, I'm so proud of you. How did that feel?
It felt really good and validating. So thank you for that. I really do appreciate it. And that just goes to show that having someone in your corner can help you to muster up that confidence that you need to get things done.
Yeah.
And since we are focusing on community and building a support system, some ways for you to build and nurture that include connecting with online communities or forums. I know a lot of us are in this technological age. We have most communities and everything at our fingertips, so we really never have to be alone. And so, like, if that is you, if you're like a Reddit person or a LinkedIn person or a group chat person, you can connect online with communities and find others with related interests, the same as you.
I have something to add to that, LaDonna.
Go ahead.
When you are going online to find these communities and forums, just make sure you're finding ones that err on the side of including more people. And they're based around inclusion, or like this forum is for everyone who likes trucks, whatever it is. Just make sure you're staying away from forums that are exclusive. So this forum is for everyone who loves trucks. No car people allowed. Nobody who drives a car is allowed. That starts to get down. That's like a telltale sign that you're in a space that's gonna start getting negative at some point and start hating on car people. So just make sure that you're. This is like a kind of a silly example, but for example, if you are looking for a space that everybody is sewing or knitting or some hobby, sourdough people, or something that has to do with your identity, right? Just make sure that it's not focused on excluding anybody. It's focused on uplifting and including people.
Absolutely. In addition to finding those online communities and forums, you can also engage in online courses or workshops like this one. We have them live as well. You can reach out to a trusted friend or family members for support, even like near and far around the corner or across the globe. Y'all can still connect because of in this world we have FaceTime and text messages and phone calls and video chat. There are so many different ways that you can connect with others, with your friends and family. And then last but not least, volunteer for a cause that you care about. I mean, I used to take my kids to the animal shelter to volunteer because they just really love that. If someone is, I don't know, feeding the hungry, or they're packing up backpacks for kids, or, anything that can be happening in your area, you can always volunteer for that, because that is a great place to find like-minded individuals that you can connect to. So small connections can be powerful. It really doesn't matter if it's just you checking in on a colleague, saying a kind word to a stranger. You just said that, Crystal, like just giving someone a compliment or offering help anywhere where you can make a difference. Those all those connections matter, and it helps you to build your community.
Yeah, I love that. And when you build up community, again, just like the advice I gave on like joining those online groups or forums, make sure you're being an additive member of your community. It's hard to build up when you are subtracting away,
Yeah.
right? You cannot build up and make progress in whichever way you see progress being made when you are subtracting, when you are excluding, when people are being hurt by words or actions or not being able to access what you're able to access. And things really, really do take a change in your mind mentally when you volunteer. I could attest to that. One of the reasons I love volunteering is so selfish. Like people are always like, you're such a good person for volunteering. And I'm like, not really, super selfish. It makes me feel a lot better about my life. Like sometimes. Like it's not actually always I would love to say it's only for other people and that's it. But I really do get a sense that there's something bigger than me, and I could come out of my own head and stop feeling bad for myself because I'm feeling, again, that additive idea of goodness. The added idea of like adding to the world instead of being like somebody who subtracts. So it just really does help me. That sounds so bad, but I try to not make it like, at least yeah, I don't know. But sometimes it's a little selfish because it feels so good and it does change my brain chemistry and my brain patterns. So one of the other things that I wanted to shift to was talking about other ways organizations can be additive and not subtracting. So one of the things coming out now a lot in when organizations talk about things like diversity, equity, and inclusion is they're starting to get this scarcity mindset, like, or this mindset based on fear, and they're starting to think about this concept of obeying in advance. Like, should we take away our DEI committees? Should we take away our employee resource groups? And that again is it's really hard to build up when you're taking things away. So it's just really important that you either maintain or build up. Now is the time for your DEI committee to shine. Like, it's one thing to have a diversity, equity, inclusion committee when things are like okay, but when it's going down out here with all of the executive orders, this is the time for your committee to shine. This is the time for those people to be seen as leaders in your organization. This is the time to take big leaps forward and solidify some things into your organization's policies and maybe your bylaws, not going backwards, especially not in advance when you don't have to yet, if it's not against the law yet. I wanted to give an example for this nonprofit I'm the board president of, actually. Hunters of Color is like a national nonprofit where we mentor hunters of color. That makes sense. It's in the title. But after the executive orders about DEI started coming out, and there was a lot of alarm around funding sources, they were like taking away federal funding. We didn't know what to do. Like the staff started getting a little like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Board's like, what's happening? And I was like, yo, let's have a meeting. Let's just talk about it. And someone was like, what's going to be on the agenda? And I was like, no agenda. No agenda. Like, when was the last time your organization, your school had an agenda-less meeting, LaDonna? Did you ever have one? No, it's not a thing. I'm like, no, let me answer for you. So I was like, no agenda. We're just going to let it flow freestyle, right? And so we get on, and at first people are talking about their feelings. They're talking about being scared. And then we were like, well, what are we going to do? And one by one, people were like, I've always wanted to host this event. I've always wanted to do this. What about a potluck that has nothing to do with hunting, but we just host it for the community? Like, what if we just hold a shooting event that has nothing to do with killing animals or anything like that? We just shoot guns and bows and arrows and we just get some of these feelings out. And like we just started, the idea started to expand, and it turns out at the end of the meeting we came up with more ideas for expanding the organization in ways that cost little to no money than we have in any other meeting we've ever had. And it was so beautiful. And so the two things I learned from that was, one, when times are like really stressful, like sometimes people, especially employees and staff members, just need to know that you're there for them by not having an agenda at all. When you have an agenda, you are saying, this is what's important to me to cover. Without an agenda, we say, look, we put it over to you. What do you want to talk about? And then let them talk. And then the second thing is, oftentimes in those things, like people are like worried that it's just going to be negative and like these spirals. I was worried about that too, but it ended up coming, everyone's natural instinct to serve other people started emerging very, very naturally. And it wasn't from a specific person in leadership who made that shift. It was just like kind of this small idea. And then people started saying yes and to it. And then suddenly we had all of this extra ideas that, again, are going to cost little to no money. And it went from like this scarcity, like heavy feeling meeting to this like feeling of exuberant abundance. And it was so beautiful. So just hosting that kind of a space for people, that's what real community is all about, even within an structured organization, right? So community, community, community. And I just want to give a shout out to any introverts out there. People might not realize that I'm a little bit more introverted than I seem. You can get community, you, LaDonna, yeah, I know you, I see you. You can get community in other ways. Reading books. That is kind of like community over time. That's community with historic people in it, right? So there's also the internet, again, those additive spaces, those yes and spaces that really like level up instead of like taking away and starting to be like mean and negative. But read books, please read books, okay? And that can be kind of community over time. LaDonna, I want to go back to hearing you talk about some of the self-care tips. I saw something on Instagram today, and I'm hoping you could talk about it in this next section. It said self-care is actually often aftercare, where we move self-care to after we really need it. and that self-care is more proactive, but our current idea of self-care is like reactive. I did all of this stressful stuff at work, and now I'm going to take a nap over the weekend to catch up on sleep. That's not self-care, that's aftercare. Can you talk to us a little bit? What do you think about that? And do you have more self-care tips for us?
Yes, I do. And I don't know, I guess it was right on time for you to see that because a lot of us do treat self-care as aftercare. We try to, oh, I'm stressed out, let me go and do, right? And if we actually use self-care as a preventative thing. Like self-care should be a part of like your everyday. Self-care should be built into your schedule. Self-care should be a part of your strategy, regardless if you're talking about your personal strategy or your professional strategy. Because if we just wait until we're on empty, um our there are so many things that could go wrong, right? We can't really like think straight because we're like stressed out, our brain is all fuzzy, sometimes we're frustrated, tired. There are so many different ranges of emotions, or feelings, or I don't know how to describe it, that happens when you save self-care for after and you use it as a preventative measure. So that was right on time. And I think that leads me right into some things I'm gonna hammer over the head with a like I'm just gonna go into it. You're gonna hear me say this over and over and over again, but like we have to prioritize ourselves. I'm gonna let that sit. We have to prioritize ourselves, especially at this time where we're feeling all of these different ranges of these complex feelings. Like I shared on part one, how I go from being angry to sad to anxious to whatever. Now I want to go cry in the corner. And then I'm like, all right. And then I'm like, calm. Because of the current climate. And what we need to do is we need to allow ourselves to have that space to feel the feelings, right? Because it's understandable for us to be overwhelmed and sad and anxious and figure out what can I do to fix this, even though some of these things aren't ours to fix. So we're gonna hear this over and over. Focus on what it is that you can control. Focus on strategies to manage your stress and build resilience. How, you may be asking? Being mindful, being reflective, journaling, doing things that fill your cup. Maybe you are a part of this hunting group that Crystal mentioned, and maybe part of filling your cup is connecting with other members of this hunting group and going to a shooting range or having that potluck or jumping on a Zoom call to just share about what it is that we're doing. You may remember from part one, if you've seen it, I'm going to keep referring to part one because y'all want to watch part one. Look, attitude. That you can go on a media diet. You can have someone that holds you accountable for your doom scrolling. That's asking you, hey, did you unfollow that account that always posts that stuff that gets you all up in arms? Because we have to put ourselves first because there is no way we can go out and do the things that we want to do to even support the different causes or be effective on our jobs or be a good support in the community that we're trying to build. We want to be able to add to that community, so we have to put us first. It is not selfish. It is not selfish. And then last but not least, we have to build those supportive, nurturing support systems. We have to build a community that is going to benefit us. That's very essential because those strong connections and having that peer support, it provides that vital buffer that we need against stress, anxiety, and loneliness. Because we've all been in a place of isolation, right? We don't have to be isolated right now. So we want to make an extra effort to build a community to help us to not be isolated. When you have a great support system, it offers a sense of belonging and support and encouragement, and it helps you to maintain a healthy and emotional health and good mental health. Okay, so by focusing on self-care and building community and focusing on what we can control, we can navigate this challenging time together and create a more positive future because I mean, we can create the future that we want and deserve.
Yeah, one of the things that I have written on a coffee mug that I made is the future doesn't exist and never shall. And so while we work, the future is a thing. Like we can think of the future, but what that means is you can basically start doing that whatever you're putting off right now. So if you want a more inclusive community, you can start being a more inclusive person right now. You are part of the community that you might have a problem with, right? Like we are all part of this country. Like I have a problem with the politics. I'm a voter. I could run for office. I could be on a commission or a board, a school board or something like that. So I'm part of the problem, but I'm also part of the solution, right? And so we can just start living our lives right now in the way that we want others to. So instead of pointing at somebody else and saying, I wish that they would blah, 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 you can just start doing it. In the time that it takes you to be negative about it, complain about it online, point to somebody else and say they should be doing it, you could be doing it, right? So there's no time to start than today. So like the famous like quote like be the change you wish to see in the world. Like literally like just start being the change. Like if you wish that people were nicer to each other in the grocery store, next time you go to the grocery store, be nice to someone. And then someone in your community was nicer at the grocery store today. Like every time you have like an issue, like yes, there's other problems in the world, like it's not just you or anything like that, but there's also three fingers pointing right back and you have anything that you think somebody else can do, you can do too. And you can start right now and you could start building that positive future. You could just be yesterday's future right now.
Right.
Okay. Oh, I like that. You could be yesterday's future, right? Okay.
I,
I'm gonna
I just
workshop that, maybe make some shirts. I don't know. Uh we'll see what happens. But like that's one of the other things too in DEI work is I see so many people talking about what other people should do and how somebody else should do something. And it feels really good to finger wag and be like, "Oh, the HOA should be doing this." I'm like, go be on your HOA then and just do
right.
it. Like be the person. Like and so and if you're not able to do that, then maybe focus that stuff somewhere else. Like there is a really important role for writing letters to your state representatives or your senators. Great. Yes, go do that, right? That's a great time. But again, try to be additive. Instead of talking or writing a letter to someone who you're just going to like yell at for not doing something, you could take that same amount of time and write to a senator or representative who's on the cusp of being able to do something, write that person a really positive, engaging letter saying how big of a fan you are of something that they've done and tell them what you'd like them to do. And it's just like such a better use of harnessing that energy. Because if you write like hate mail to people, they're just going to read it and you're going to make their day worse. And then they're going to be even more against your side. You could take that same amount of energy and write a positive, supportive message to someone who's like closer to being able to move the needle. And if you write a positive message to that person and then encourage that person to like keep going, do more, like keep doing this. It's just such a more efficient use of energy, especially in like letter writing campaigns to politicians. So within your organization as well, like take that approach too. So on your immediate level, wherever you work, focus on the folks that are doing the right things, the good things, the inclusive things, and erring on the side of being that change that you want to see tomorrow and the next day. Pick something that they do that you really admire, and then just start doing it the next day too. If you notice that if you're always like, you know what? LaDonna always says hi to people in the mornings, and I think that's really cool. I wish more people said hi in the mornings. If that's a sentence that you might see yourself saying about a coworker, then start doing that the next day. Be the change that you wish to see in your workplace. And you can just start embodying all, just make sure that what you are preaching, practice what you preach. Make sure that whatever you're preaching in the inclusive, positive direction is something that you yourself are taking steps towards. And be sure to self-reflect. Am I breaking up? Can you understand me?
Yes.
Okay. Make sure that you yourself are taking at least a couple of those steps. And you're not just thinking about it in terms of other people having the capacity to change your organization or your community. And these are things that like anybody can do, right? Like it doesn't, I mean, it might not, you might not be able to run for senator, so write that letter. But if that's something, if any of those traits, whatever traits you find in your coworkers that you really like, you can probably just start doing them too. LaDonna, resources. What do we got? How are we gonna further the support for folks? What else can they do?
Oh,
Where do
well, I didn't mention it this time, but there is a set of resources that are available for download. And if you're watching this now, you have access to them. And in that set of resources, actually have a list of resources. There are mental health and wellness resources. I included hotlines, I included websites, I included some apps that you could use to help you with your mindfulness. I included everything, okay? So go ahead and download our list of resources, and I hope that those are things that you can not only use for yourself, but share with others who can also use them.
Yes, and it's really great. There's so many. I was reviewing them before we recorded the first part of this. I don't know if you heard, but there's a first part. And I just kept scrolling and I was like, there's so much here. So take a look at that. Pick a couple things to do out of them right now. Like you don't have to, like when you look at it, you might be, there's so many things to do. Just pick a couple and do one or two of them and then see what feels right and keep doing those. And then maybe add another few the next day. If something doesn't work for you, stop doing it, pick something else to do. But there's so many different options and opportunities on the resources LaDonna created. She's amazing at that. So for DEI resources, first of all, breathe. I'm gonna go back to one of LaDonna's free resources, oxygen. Free for now. uh and remember to breathe. Breathe slowly, breathe deeply. I'm not kidding. That is going to be your number one resource in diversity, equity, and inclusion work is making sure to breathe. I recommend reading the executive orders themselves. Stop reading analysis on the executive orders unless it's from like a journalistic, ethically journalistic, fact-based, fact-focused news resource. Don't read op-eds on them. You know why? Because you have your own op-ed that you could be given yourself in your head. Don't let other people tell you how to think about the executive orders. Think about them yourself. Also keep in mind that the point of this like complete onslaught of executive orders is to make you feel tired and confused and anxious. They are doing this on purpose as a strategy and like giving you so much to think about, you don't know which way is up. They're like not going to make pennies anymore, right? We're like bulldozing Gaza. That is terrible. But like the point is like to throw things at you so you get off kilter. So read the executive orders themselves instead of reading analysis on them, and then make your own analysis. Think your own thoughts on them. Read books. Read books about fascism. We have a Goodreads anti-fascist book list here. Make your own context for current events based on history. Don't let other people think for you. For community, I started the DL Activist. It's on Patreon. You just search for the DL, the letters D, L, like the download activist. We got a great online community going on there where you can talk to other people, get some resources, get some webinars, and really just start building that community of like-minded folks who are based on or who are solutions focused. We're not just complaining on there. You can ask for advice on what things you should do and get it from your peers. All right. Inclusiveguide.com also created that. It's like Yelp for inclusion. So that's a place you can go to look for safe and welcoming businesses. And remember to leave a review so other people can find places that you found safe and welcoming. And do focus on what you can do and then go do those things. For me, this webinar, for me and LaDonna, this webinar is something we can do. And we can talk to people and we can connect with folks. And so we did it. We did it. Here we are. I can't change executive orders. So while I'm going to learn about them, I'm not going to focus on them. I'm going to focus on what I can do. And that's to talk to y'all about how to navigate the internet right now and remain sane. So with that, anything else, LaDonna, before we wrap out this second part?
No, I just want to say thanks for all who plan or who are tuning in to part two. If you haven't checked out part one, make sure you go do that and check out those resources that we have. And we will be adding Crystal's book list and some other things as well that kind of came up after the fact. So just take heed, focus on what you can do, and I mean, build that community and go out and be great.
Let's go change the world is what we always say at Inclusive Guide. So good luck
Let's
out
go
there.
do that.
Got this. Hang tight.